think we're 2 or 3 major incidents from the ignition of a civil war, and that's the last thing anybody wants. But who wants it? The establishment want it, so they can lock you down further, digital IDs, more surveillance, more intrusion in your life. That's what they want. We've got to find a way of uniting. Now, if that's getting called far right, then so be it.
There is a fascinating, if chilling, consensus emerging among British academics, celebrities, and mainstream politicians who are finally admitting what so many of us have been warning for so long. The UK is on the brink, and civil war is no longer an unrealistic concept. The Restorationist has even compiled a terrifying dossier of what they foresee as the final 6 months of the United Kingdom, writing, in the event Parliament's authority is no longer recognised or obeyed, we need an emergency continuity protocol for what to do next, planning which honours England's ancient constitutional traditions and maintains democratic order through legitimate means during institutional breakdown. The academic David Betts, who has long predicted civil war, posted this week, I've said it before, as have many others, but it bears repeating, that the EU with Britain on a leash has morphed into the USSR. Sclerotic, corrupt, bankrupt ideologically, and soon literally unloved, unfeared, and unfixable. Now even sports people formerly on the left, like Joey Barton, are prepared to admit the reality of what we are facing. Can you believe that more than half of you are watching this video but not subscribed? So please do me a huge favour, click the subscribe button now, turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to all of our brand new Outspoken videos.
2 or 3 major incidents from the ignition of a civil war, and that's the last thing anybody wants. But who wants it? The establishment want it, so they can lock you down further, digital IDs, more surveillance, more intrusion in your life. That's what they want. We've got to find a way of uniting. Now, if that's getting called far right, then so be it. You know, if I'm against, I believe I'm from the left. I believe that's where I don't believe I've ever changed. I just believe the left's gone fucking insane. When we look at men winning women's Olympics boxing medals, case in point. I need to go no further. You all know exactly what we're on about. But the problem you've got is being right-wing, all right, labelled right-wing, is standing up for the country's borders, standing up against illegal invaders come to this country who nobody knows about, burning and throwing their passports in the Channel or in France, and then sexually assaulting and harassing young girls in school uniforms.
So how did we get here? Well, the rising star of the Conservative Party admits it was their fault. Sure, it was started by Toby Blair, but turbocharged under the Tories. Here's Katie Lamb.
Imagine this bead represents 1,000 people, a sold-out West End theatre. For the 24 years up to 1997, net migration was 18,000 people. What about the 24 years since? 5.2 million. And just the last 4 years, 3.4 million. It's been completely out of control. Now let's look just at those who've arrived since 2021. 700,000 humanitarian visas, 280,000 work visas, and 300,000 family visas.
Most of these people didn't come to work and are paying no tax.
Just these beads here in black might be earning enough to contribute more than they cost. But after 5 years here,
Most of these people can get something called
indefinite leave to remain. ILR means stay indefinitely, get welfare, social housing, free healthcare, and it puts you on the path to citizenship. The government spends, on average, £34,000 looking after somebody in just the last year of their life. But very few of these people will contribute that in tax over the whole time that they're here, let alone enough for all of the welfare and services they and their family will get too. It's going to cost us hundreds of billions of pounds. That's roughly enough to cut a quarter of income tax for nearly a decade. This is insane. State support should only be for citizens who just can't afford for people to come here who can't support themselves. And if they are already here, they must not be able to go on benefits. Instead, they will need to leave.
And of course, those disturbing and dystopian numbers that Katie Lamb just outlined have had a real world impact. A new documentary going viral for the New Culture Forum has this week revealed the devastating impact on Liverpool. Peter Lloyd, the presenter of Liverpool's tragic decline, immigration, asylum, Islam and institutional cowardice, summed it up by posting, "Liverpool is dying. White population down 97% to 77%. Muslim population up from 5,000 to 30,000. Arabic, now city's second language. Rapes doubled since migrant influx began." Yet, as he points out, the Merseyside police don't want to admit there is a link between sex crimes and foreign men.
Liverpool always seemed immune from so-called cultural enrichment. A few decades ago, there was hardly any. Then, over the past few years, that seemed to change with an almost secret population explosion. Now, the city is somewhat unrecognisable. Part of this is because the Home Office designated Liverpool a dispersal area, aka a dumping ground for those who've broken into the country. As a result, most asylum seekers are sent here while their applications are processed. Sadly, the host population were never consulted or informed. City officials and council leaders would be quick at this point to point out that migration to Liverpool is nothing new. Back in the 19th century, it welcomed 1 million Irish people during the Great Famine. And while this is true, there's one key difference. Irish culture is not alien or incompatible with England.
And of course, the real world impacts, because that's what matters, right? How we live day to day on the culture of Liverpool are now impossible to avoid.
But there's also the impact on culture and social cohesion. Many people from Africa and the Middle East hold the sort of views that, if voiced by a white working class man, would land him in jail under Keir Starmer's Orwellian regime. Yet when they do it, it's deemed almost exotic. Unsurprisingly, this puts the weakest in society in a vulnerable position. For the gay community, it means a new imported hostility. Just when they've achieved societal acceptance, they now have to deal with a whole new group of imported people who oppose them. After all, the majority of Muslims want homosexuality to be illegal, and Africa is routinely condemned by Amnesty International for its attitudes to homosexuality. And of course, migration has also put women at heightened risk of rape and sexual assault. While doing research for this report, I uncovered some truly shocking data, which council bosses won't want you to know. The data shows that in 2015, there were 2,230 recorded cases of rape or sexual assault. By 2022, that figure almost doubled to nearly 5,000. This isn't because local men have suddenly become more predatory. It's because of who we've imported into the city. Some of these incidents are captured on smartphones and shared on social media. For example, these men were forced from a bus for inappropriate activity with a young girl.
This is just ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Just go. It's women and children. Fuck off. Go away. Go away. Go away. Look at them. Oh! Get away. What's your door? Your door.
This man was allegedly caught filming children in a park.
I don't care if you're mates here or not. You don't come and do that.
Okay, you can delete it yourself.
Go
on and say deleted ones as well.
I'll try to delete it.
Yeah, he's got taken videos and all kids.
You're a fucking disgrace.
And yes, again, as you can see in those real world examples, today's immigrants are different and they are changing the face of Liverpool.
Today's immigrants are not Irish. Many of them are not even European. Huge numbers of them come from Africa and the Middle East. In fact, Liverpool's rate of immigration from these regions is 25% higher than the rest of the UK, which explains why the black population in Liverpool has increased by 154%.
South Africa, I hate your country.
There's also been a 69% increase of Muslims living in the city, once the Catholic capital of the UK. In 2001, there were 5,000 Muslims. Now, 30,000. If this trend continues, there'll be no need for either of Liverpool's famous cathedrals. After all, Islam is now the second biggest religion here, and Arabic the second most common language. And herein lies another problem. Many migrants have no desire to assimilate. According to the 2021 census, nearly 2,000 people in Liverpool could not speak English at all. A further 10,000 people couldn't speak it well. Half a decade later, those numbers will almost certainly have grown. Just ask the locals.
This is the first time in a good while I've came into the city centre for a good few months now. And I'll be honest with you, I've hardly heard one Scouse voice.
But first, something really important to talk to you about. Scammers and spammers who are out there to ruin your life. We've all experienced more and more of those spam emails, text messages, and robo phone calls. Not only are they annoying and really time-consuming to deal with, but they usually represent a gross invasion of your private information that can cause vast reputational and financial damage. And I mean, how the heck did they get your information in the first place? Well, it's likely as a result of data brokers who know everything about you, your health information, relationship status, mortgage details, so much more actually, and then sell it for a profit. These data brokers can directly or indirectly expose sensitive information to bad actors, putting you at risk of identity theft. The number of data breaches worldwide rises every year. According to the annual data breach report by the Identity Theft Resource Center, it actually went up by 72% in 2023. This means that you and your loved ones are at a constantly increasing risk of data breaches as growing lists of data brokers hold your personal information. That has then been sold or published online without you even knowing about it. Let me tell you how shocking the consequences can be. Health insurance companies could actually raise your rates based on your online activity. Huge loans have been taken under people's names without them even knowing about it. And scammers have even started to use AI to, wait for it, mimic the voices of friends and family to trick victims into sending them money. These imposter scams rely entirely on the voice data they can find online. While you can ask these data brokers to delete your personal information, the process takes hundreds of hours to do manually and requires repetition. But the good news is that today I have a solution for you that I use and personally endorse. Go to incogni.com/outspoken and get 60% off an annual plan. Now, Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your personal data removal, and handles any objections from their side. The whole process is automated, ensuring that your data stays off the market by conducting repeated removals and taking your data down if it pops up again. That's what makes the yearly subscription especially advantageous. Now, I do the annual plan so that I'm constantly being taken off these lists. It truly is a simple process. Create an account, grant Incogni the right to work for you, and they will contact the data brokers on your behalf to request your personal data removal. It has helped me so much. You can go to incogni.com/outspoken and get 60% off. That's 60% off an annual plan right now. It could be the most important decision you make. But now, back to the show. That doesn't make you racist. Doesn't make you far right. And we know what the woke people say. We know what the hard left say. Oh, but what about the Irish immigrants to Liverpool? Well, there is a difference.
Merseyside police have made a disproportionate amount of appeals for foreign men who are wanted in connection with sex crimes. Despite this, they refuse to acknowledge the connection to immigration. On the contrary, they seem to be almost suppressing this fact. When I first drew attention to the parallels between migrant men and sex crimes, Merseyside police almost completely stopped publishing appeals about foreign men. It's almost as if they're trying to hide an uncomfortable truth for the sake of the narrative. This is particularly astonishing when you realise that the head of Merseyside police is a woman who, like the rest of us, saw what happened in Cologne on New Year's Eve 2015, when 1,000 German women were sexually assaulted by migrants.
Salam alaikum. I'm speaking to you today because I want to reinforce my commitment to protect every member of our Merseyside community.
Sadly, the local media here are no better. BBC Radio Merseyside has said nothing about the correlation between migrants and sex crimes, while the Liverpool Echo newspaper has also failed to cover it, despite being edited by a feminist. This is odd, especially when national statistics already prove that foreign men are overrepresented in crime stats. Data from the Ministry of Justice shows that 23% of sexual offences, including rape, were accounted for by foreign nationals between 2021 and 23.
Well, it is an incredible documentary which you can watch at the New Culture Forum, but I'm delighted that the host, Peter Lloyd, joins me now for the uncancelled interview. Peter, so look, it's your hometown, Liverpool.
It is.
And it must be hard for you to actually write those words, Liverpool is dying, but then watching your brilliant documentary, as I've done, really does back up that that is a fact.
Yeah, it's really tragic, Dan. I mean, Liverpool to me is part of the family. It's almost like a human being. It's like a living relative, really, Liverpool. And so to watch it suffer and to watch it kind of ail and be afflicted is heartbreaking, really. And it happened very, very quickly. Like I say in the documentary, for many, many years, Liverpool was majority white. It was 97% white English. The culture was very specific to Liverpool. The humour, the personality, the banter. It was very, very much its own kind of mini country, really, in England. And then almost overnight, it's like somebody turned a tap on, and there were, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of Arabic-looking men, women in veils, burqas, and these were things that you never, ever saw before. It was fine in London, you would expect it in London, which is much bigger and perhaps much more international, but in Liverpool, you would never, ever see a presence of the Middle East or Islam, and yet suddenly, overnight, it seemed to happen, and that is what really sparked my idea for the documentary, because I was concerned. I could see visually the changes, but also my friends who still live in Liverpool were saying to me, Peter, something's going on here. The council are just busing people into the city, and it's a small city. It can't cope. What do we do? I tried to contact the local media. None of them were interested. There was a complete blackout. So I said, right, let's do something with the NCF and use new media to get the message out there. And thankfully, people like you exist and this show exists, so we can get the message out, because otherwise nobody else would know about it. We wouldn't be able to sound the alarm.
No, totally. And the thing is that we speak so much about London, don't we? Because yes, the destruction of London, which was, I believe, the world's greatest city just 20 years ago, is horrifying. But I also always point out what's happening in London is just a macro version of what's happening in all of our cities, really. And I think it's so important, because what's happening in Liverpool, there's a lot of things that do translate over to Birmingham and do translate over to Manchester, and even people in Glasgow now getting so angry about it. What did you make of Joey Barton? I mean, this is really interesting, because you'll admit, Peter, one of Liverpool's most famous residents, but also most controversial, but absolutely Scouse, loud and proud. And he's saying there in the digest, look, we're close to civil war We're close to civil war, and he doesn't care anymore if saying that means that people will refer to him as far right. Is he correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. First of all, I must say I love Joey Barton. I loved him when he was a footballer, and I love him even more now that he's speaking out on these big issues.
He's great.
It takes real courage. I mean, you know this, but it takes real courage to put yourself on the line and say uncomfortable truths. But it's particularly difficult if you're someone like Joey and, you know, you already have a big profile and you're kind of like media accredited, like you're allowed, you know, you're allowed to be a personality because you're approved. He really has much more to lose. So it's very brave of him to speak out, and I admire him for that, even if he is wearing that shirt.
That shirt is quite something. It is quite something.
But you know, Dan, although this documentary is about Liverpool, it's really about every small town and city in the country. It's
England,
not just about Liverpool. It is about England. And what's happened is London has essentially become full, and it's spilling over now into everywhere else in the country. So the viewers watching, your cities and towns are next. We have got to do something about this. Otherwise, where you live will become unrecognizable. And when that happens, there's no turning the clock back.
Do you expect, because look, we've got another weekend potentially of uprising, hotel migrant uprising across the United Kingdom. What's going to happen to Merseyside? What's going to happen to the Scousers? You know, they are people, Peter, who, I mean, look at Hillsborough, for example. I mean, do you think the people of Liverpool are going to end up taking direct action and going to be on the streets?
Well, you only have to look back to last summer. I mean, you know, there were riots in Southport. There was unrest in Southport, which is, of course, part of Merseyside, over Axel Rudabakana's disgusting terror act. So the passion is certainly there, the will is certainly there, and the frustration is certainly there. So I wouldn't be remotely surprised. In fact, I'm actually shocked that there hasn't been more unrest, because the social contract is completely broken. The local authorities, the council, the local press, all of these institutions seem in cahoots and seem to be deliberately facilitating the decline of the city. And I think, you know, like Professor David Beck, who you mentioned earlier, talking about the risk of civil war, eventually the people are forced to make themselves heard in an unconventional way and perhaps an unedifying way, and that's when they take to the street. But what else are these people supposed to do if they're being ignored?
100%. I mean, Douglas Carswell said earlier this week, for 20 years, 6 different elections. And I mean, actually, you can go right back to the times of Enoch Powell, where the great British population actually agreed with the guy. We have voted for decreased immigration. Our authorities, the people in charge, have given us the opposite. So at some point, something really major has to change.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.